Welcome into the Verts podcast. I'm Tyler Graves alongside Carter Bells. This is episode 9 of the Verts podcast.
Yep, coming off of a big home win against Missouri. Vols undefeated at home this year, so that's great to see. That's the first time that's happened since 2007, I believe, when Eric Ainge was behind center.
Yes, I actually had to look that up on Saturday because I did not know when the last time we won all of our games at home was, and it was when I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a good thing for Tennessee to finally go undefeated at home once again. As yes, the final score is 66-24. Hendon Hooker had a great day through the air, and I think he also had,
he had a pretty good game on the ground.
On the ground, he had that's 50 yards. So, and one rushing touchdown, of course. That one play down in the south end zone.
Yeah, escaped. Well, it was a pass play, wasn't it? He escaped pressure. Was it a straight run ride? I can't quite remember.
I can't remember either. I want to say it was an option play.
That's right, it was, and he just tucked underneath and was untouched into the end zone. My score prediction actually ended up being pretty close. As I had the Vols winning 62-24. They put 4 more on the board than I expected.
63. You had 63.
63. That's right, 63. So yeah, great job by the Vols against what was it, the 13th ranked defense at the time? I think they dropped to like 30 something after that game as they gave up over 700 yards offensively or defensively. That is a school record for Tennessee. And, so pretty crazy.
Of course, I predicted Tennessee to win 38-17. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking looking back. I guess maybe the weather.
Probably a mix of the weather and, defensively up until that game, Missouri was pretty stout. But the Vols do a pretty good job of exposing defenses as they've done all year.
Yes, and I found – I'm not going to talk about the South Carolina game in depth yet, but for South Carolina, I found a very interesting statistic about their defense, and I'll share that later. But, so Tennessee – Dylan Sampson, this is the main thing from this game. Tennessee did not have a rusher get to 100 yards, but Dylan Sampson – did have a very good game. He was Tennessee's leading rusher. He came in the third quarter and really ignited a spark in the Tennessee offense.
Yeah, it seemed like every time he touched the ball, it was going for 10 plus. I think he had maybe 1 or 2 carries that were under 8 yards. As I believe his first rush of the game or second rush of the game went for like 20, 24, 17, something like that. 17 yards, 24 yards. So, great to see from the freshman. I can't imagine how dangerous he's going to be when he gets another year in the weight room at the college level.
Yeah, he's got a lot of quickness to him. Williams Thomas is the running back behind him. He's more of a power back. He's already big. He'll have no problem with staying healthy or anything. I don't think Justin Williams Thomas will. But Dylan Sampson's the main back I think that you need to watch for 2 years from now, just because he is so explosive. He's got a lot of speed, and we saw. I think he caught a. Did he catch a swing pass?
He caught a swing pass on the outside that went for, I think 3. No, excuse me, it went for 8 yards
7,
or something like that.
Yeah, I think it went for 7 yards. Really nice to see him because we've not really. As good as Tennessee's offense has been this year, we've not really seen a freshman just kind of, we've not seen any freshmen
take over, really,
and play that well. And then Squirrel White at the end.
Yeah. No, and that's one thing. There were a lot of explosive plays in this game, but the most explosive play came by our backups. Joe Milton threw a ball 69 yards in the air, and it didn't even look like he really stepped into it as the pocket was closing on him. So it looked like he really took a half step and just chucked it, and that ball went a long way. Even the announcers, I was in the stadium, but going back and watching the replays on social media, the announcers were like, oh my goodness. That ball kept flying. And I really didn't realize how far the throw was, in person, because you're used to seeing deep balls in this Tennessee offense. But they just really he got a hold of that one, and then obviously the controversy at the end was scoring the touchdown, late. But
which I have no problem
no,
with.
I have no problem with it. Give your second stringers quality snaps, and taking a knee is not a quality snap.
I do kind of wish that they gave Grant Ferkering the ball. I think that's how you say his name, Ferkering.
Zero.
Yes.
Yeah, the wide receiver on the outside.
Time. Yeah. Because me and you saw him come in, and we were like, "Oh, they're gonna give him the ball," and then he just went out wide, and I was like, "Oh, well, I guess they're just gonna let him play." Because I know he played in the Tennessee Martin game too for a couple of snaps in the end. But also, I wanted to mention Brew McCoy. Brew McCoy had a great game.
Yeah, he was a workhorse.
I think this was his first game over 100 yards all year.
He was pretty close, I want to say, against who was it? I think he was pretty close against Alabama, but he didn't break 100.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great to see from him. We've got another year with him.
Yes, and I think the main reason that he was able to get over 100 yards in this game and have 9 catches was because Tillman didn't play, so he got a lot of Tillman's would-be targets.
Yeah, Ramel Keaton had a pretty good game too. He had 2 catches for 60 yards. One of them being diving, the other one a pass from Joe Milton that it looked like he just floated for 40 yards through the air. And we've got him for another year too, as he did not participate in senior day. So I'm assuming he's going to be using his COVID year, as he is listed as a senior.
Are you talking about Keaton?
Yeah.
Oh yes, Keaton. I expect Keaton to be back next year. So you'll have. Let's just take a quick minute and talk about next year, like who's coming back. So you've got on offense, you've got Brew McCoy, you've got Squirrel White, and you've got Keaton. Those are going to be your 3 main wide receivers. If Hyatt comes back, obviously he will be included in that mix. But I'm going to be honest. I don't expect Jalen Hyatt to come back.
No, I don't think many people do. I'd be surprised, along with many other people, if he does come back.
The one thing that I do think could. The only reason I think Hyatt could come back is because I've heard that he wants to play with his brother in college, and the only way that would happen is if he stayed another year. So that could happen, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see in the offseason. You're losing both tight ends, I think, or just one?
They're both seniors, but one has eligibility left, I believe. I believe Jacob Warren has one more year of eligibility.
Yes, Fan is done.
But he did participate in senior day, so he might not come back. But we've got a big tight end in Ethan Davis coming in. So, tight end position is pretty crucial in this Josh Heupel offense. So interested to see what that young man does next year.
Not losing anyone at the running back position, so that's a positive.
Yep.
And then... but defensively, you are losing some guys.
A lot of veteran guys.
You're losing a lot of front 7. The back end, the secondary. Outside of I think Trayvon Flowers, I think he's.
Does
done.
Warren Burrell have one more year of eligibility?
I
don't think did. He participate in senior day?
Actually, let me just pull up the list here, Carter. You can keep talking about
I don't think Warren Burrell participated in senior day. I don't remember number 4 coming out of other than Cedric Tillman. But yeah, no, defensively, on the back end, the Vols really aren't losing much, and they're losing a lot on the front 7. But with our coaching staff up there, I don't expect there to be a whole bunch of
so I do have
downfall.
The list. Yeah, I do have the list here. On offense, it was Hooker, Cedric Tillman, Jerome Carvin, Jacob Warren, Princeton Fant, Darnell Wright, and that's all that participated on offense. So that was it. And then defensive players were Byron Young. So
that's a big loss.
That is a big loss. Latrell Bumpus, Jeremy Banks,
another big loss.
Trayvon Flowers, Solon Page, and Cheyenne LaBruza. So those are your – and then McGrath and Brooks for special teams, kicker and punter.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think you're losing more. Well, I wouldn't say you're losing more on defense, but it's harder to replace those guys, I feel like.
Correct. I mean, we forgot to mention Hooker's not going to be here next year on the offensive side, but I'm pretty confident at the quarterback position. Really, anytime Josh Heupel's the head coach, I'd feel pretty confident. But especially after seeing Milton fling the rock in the few games he's gotten in, I'm feeling pretty good about next year.
A notable name that did not participate in Senior Day was Jalen McCullough. He did not participate in Senior Day, which usually indicates that they are coming back for another year. At least it did last year. So I would feel a little bit better about our secondary if he comes back.
Agreed.
And if Warren Burrell comes back,
yeah,
because that would really help us back there.
The thing about our secondary next year is we are going to be really young because we're going to get a lot of freshmen in on the defensive end. I think in the backfield, we're obviously getting some pretty elite edge rushers and D tackles and linebackers, but I think we're getting a few defensive backs, and then that should help the depth because obviously depth has been an issue this year because of injuries, and we just don't have guys that can fill in spots.
All right, I'll mention this before we go. Let's continue on this Missouri recap. The one thing I'll say that I was disappointed in for the first half, not as much the second half, I don't feel like. But Tennessee on defense, they could not. We had another game. We haven't had this game really yet this year, but it finally happened. Whereas last year we had these games all the time where we could not contain the quarterback. So the quarterback run hurt us a lot. Brady Cook had 106 yards. He was
their offense.
Yeah, he was Missouri's leading rusher by far. Elijah Young, South Dole native, he had 21 yards on the ground. But yeah, Brady Cook really killed us in the first half. I mean, he had several runs over 10 yards.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, Carter, if he's not, he was pretty much their entire offense.
Yeah. If you take out his rushing statistics, they're under 70 yards rushing on the game, which is not good at the SEC level. Not good at all unless you're Mike Leach. So, yeah, and he had 217 yards in the air and 2 passing touchdowns. One of those was ridiculous. We had 2 defenders there, and somehow it managed to get in between both of them, and he took it for 6. That was pretty disappointing.
So on that play, so it was 4th and inches, and I think Missouri got under – I'm pretty sure they got under center.
They did, and it was a play action, and he just lobbed it in between 2 guys.
And we almost sacked Cook, but we couldn't quite get there. He floats it really high in the air, and what I've not heard anyone say is that, he caught the ball, but that play's not a touchdown if our guys don't take out each other, because our guys pretty much took out each other.
They tackled each other.
I think it was Flowers. I don't know who it was. It was it might have been Flowers. McDonald, maybe. I don't remember. But yeah, after the ball, because the ball kind of sailed and the receiver caught it, and then our guys just ran into each other. So, and then he was obviously off to the races after that.
Yeah, and Tennessee fans, throughout the entire stadium were like, this is going to be a bad game. But Tim Banks made adjustments. Rodney Gardner got his guys getting a little more pressure on Cook, and the rest is, as they say, history. Is they scored 7 in the third, and then nothing after that. So Tennessee scores, 38 unanswered? So, yeah, good game all around by the Vols, adjustment-wise, in the second half.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we will be back with SEC Talk. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our SEC Talk segment, and we are going to start off with recaps of last week. First game we'll talk about is Florida versus South Carolina. Florida beat the Gamecocks 38-6 in the Swamp.
Yeah, really bad showing by South Carolina. Really, the entire game, only scoring 6 in the second quarter. It was 21 to nothing at the end of the first quarter. The Gators really just dominated the entire time. Anthony Richardson, 11 for 23, not great pass percentage, but he had 112 yards and 2 passing touchdowns, so I guess he completed them when it mattered. And then on the ground, Florida just doing what they've done best really all year, 374 yards on the ground. South Carolina, absolutely awful. Spencer Rattler, 18 for 26, 145 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Kai Kroger, 1 for 1 with 48 yards and 1 touchdown.
That's their punter. They ran a fake punt.
Yes. So couldn't get anything going offensively, so they played Beamer ball. Beamer ball is guaranteed to get you 6 points when you're down 21-0. On the ground, 44 yards. They're under 50 yards total on the ground for the game. So not good at all. And then defensively, obviously, they can't stop anything.
And this is good news for Tennessee fans, as South Carolina is playing terrible right now. They were actually their middle of the season kind of early on. They were
started off
right.
6-2, and they're going to finish 6-6 because they play Tennessee this week and they play Clemson the end of the year. So they started off 6-2 with high hopes, and they're going to finish 6-6.
Yeah, probably so. And Florida. I hate to say it, but Florida is. I think Florida's going to be pretty good next year. I'm not saying that they're going to be like top 10 or anything, but I do think Florida will be back to being ranked next year and definitely in the conversation for top 2 in the SEC East.
Yep, and South Carolina is going to go back to before Steve Spurrier was there, and they're going to be a bottom-tier SEC program.
All right, next game we will discuss is LSU at Arkansas. This was a close game, 13-10. The grass there in Fayetteville was frozen. It was like playing on I guess you would call it a frozen tundra.
An ice rink.
Yeah. Arkansas played 2 quarterbacks in this game. Neither of them was KJ Jefferson, so he didn't play.
He struggled with injuries all year.
Yeah.
And then Jaden Daniels, he had a bad game. He looked like he did earlier in the year, 8 for 15 with 86 yards and an interception. And then on the ground, they were. That's really what ended up winning them the game. Other than their defense,
their defense is what won
them
this game. 100%. Harold Perkins had a strip sack to seal it for the Tigers. He's a freshman, by the way. He's going to be a very, very good player over the next few years for them.
Yeah, Brian Kelly has done a pretty good job as they solidify their SEC West champion status. And then Arkansas has just been on a downhill slide all year long. They have looked bad, considering they were, a top 10 team to start the year?
Top 20. I had them 10th. I will admit that. I had them 10th at the beginning of the year. And obviously that didn't work out. So
no, and it's not looking like it's going to get any better, especially if your starting quarterback can't win the injury battle.
Let's talk about Brian Kelly. So, first year on the job at LSU, he wins the SEC East. He wins the division.
West.
Or did I say the East?
Yeah.
Okay, the West. Yes, obviously I meant the West. And they're going to be playing in Atlanta in year 1 under Brian Kelly. I mean, to me, that is a very impressive thing for the LSU program, and a big step in the right direction, as last year they were awful. They got boat raced against Kansas State, I think it was, in the bowl game. I think they got beat 42 to nothing, something like that. So Brian Kelly comes in, obviously gets some guys out of the portal, but really he was dealt kind of a crappy hand, and he has done well in his first year in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, as much as I dislike Brian Kelly as a person, he and as a coach, I just can't stand the dude. He's done a really good job of turning that program around in year 1. So Might be seeing a bit of a power shift in the West. Who knows? With Nick Saban getting older, only time will tell. But yeah, an excellent job by Coach Kelly.
Let's go ahead and talk about the Alabama game. So Alabama was able to hold off Ole Miss and win 30-24 in Oxford. And to me, this game was huge for Alabama. This was a big game for Alabama because if they lost this game, I do think the perception around them would be different than it is right now, because now it's just like, okay, okay, they lost 2 games this year. You know, they just had a bad year. Whereas you go 9-3, and you're starting to talk about like
retirement for Coach Saban.
Is the dynasty over? Is Alabama ever going to win another national championship under Saban? And then you start having that kind of talk. But now, I mean, it's just like, okay, they went 10-2. They're probably going to go to the Citrus or the Orange Bowl or something and win over some Big Ten team and finish 11-2. And it's just going to be a down year, a quote unquote down year for Alabama.
Have they missed a college football playoff?
Yes.
What year was that?
So, back in the year that they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, not 13. I'm talking about 2019. 2019.
Oh yeah, they did, didn't they?
2019, Auburn beat them to beat Alabama. Gave Alabama their second loss of the year. I can't remember off the top of my head who they're. Oh, LSU 2019. Yep. That was the Burrow year. Okay, so they lost to LSU and then they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Auburn went to Atlanta, got beat by Georgia. So, but anyway, Alabama did not make the playoff at 10-2, and instead they went to, I think it was the Citrus Bowl, and I think they beat Penn State or Michigan. So I think that's probably what's going to happen this year. I'd say it's probably going to be Penn State, is my guess.
Yeah, no, that's a good guess. On the offensive side for Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, 18 for 31, 212 yards. On the ground, they had 191 yards. The majority of those coming from Judkins, who I believe is a freshman over there. So that's something to look at. But like Lane Kiffin said in his presser, that stuff doesn't matter. The score is what matters, and we lost. I'd like to say that the play calling at the end of that game was very suspect on that last drive for Ole Miss. I can't say that I liked some of the plays that Kiffin was throwing out there, Tyler.
Yeah, I was thinking, I thought he would be a little more creative considering this is Lane Kiffin and this is his Super Bowl. So I was kind of surprised at, just the lack of creativity there at the end. I thought he would try to dial something up more than, he ended up doing. But overall, I would have to say Ole Miss, I think their offense could have scored more points in this game because, 24 against Bama's defense any other year is pretty good, but this year it's not.
No, their secondary is very suspect. But like I've said all year, Ole Miss has dominated running the ball. They can't pass very well. Yeah, Jackson Dart is not the best passer.
Alabama did a pretty good job, 191 yards for Ole Miss on the ground. That's a pretty good job.
Yeah,
by Alabama containing Ole Miss on the ground. So, if I was to highlight one thing from this game, it would be, Ole Miss's inability to put up big plays on the ground against Alabama.
Yeah, offensively for the Tide, Bryce Young's still looking like he's going to be a top 5 draft pick this year. 21 for 33, 209 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. That dude he's a magician back there. He has been all year. He's been a magician since he started at Alabama for the first time. He's just evading sacks and getting the ball downfield. I think there was a play pretty early on in that game. He avoided a sack and was able to throw it into the end zone for 6, and that was outside of the pocket. So it's crazy that he can do stuff like that.
All right, that's going to do it for this game. Now let's go to Georgia, Mississippi State. We won't talk about this one too much, but Georgia does get the win 45-19 in Starkville. Georgia obviously is ranked number one still, and Will Rogers was not able to have the type of day that you need against Georgia's defense to win in the air raid system.
No, and really, that air raid system, it's hard to beat well-balanced teams defensively, particularly because you're one-dimensional. You're not going to be able to move the ball down the field like you're supposed to if the defense knows what's coming. I mean, on the ground, 47 yards, you're not going to get more than 100 yards in a game, more than 80 yards in a game with Mike Leach as your head coach. You're going to see about 50 to 60 passes from your quarterback, and that's not hard for defenses like Georgia to stop.
Yes, and Mississippi State only had 47 yards on the ground. Ladd McConkey had one catch for 70 yards and a touchdown.
He just seems to make the big plays, doesn't he?
Yep, and Georgia, I heard Kirby Smart say before the game, he was telling the media, guys, Mississippi State has a really good defense, and they do. I mean, they've got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, but everyone just hears Mississippi State and thinks, oh, Mike Leach, they're an offensive team. They just throw it around a lot. And, I mean, while that kind of is true, they do have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. So,
yep, just not able to get it done against that strong offensive line from Georgia, as they were unable to get Stetson Bennett's jersey dirty one time in this game. Only 5 tackles for a loss as well for a I don't want to say they're run heavy this year as like they normally are, because Stetson Bennett's throwing the ball around. They're pretty balanced.
They're balanced,
which is not normal for Georgia teams coached by Kirby Smart, as they've been pretty run heavy. They've been run heavy since Mark Richt was there, but
it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Kentucky. Kentucky, what are you doing?
You just lost to Vanderbilt, who hadn't won a conference game since 2019.
Like what?
2019.
What are you doing, Kentucky? I thought you had the number 1 overall pick at quarterback.
Yeah, I thought Will Levis was the second coming of Jesus Christ in the coal mines over there.
Well, Kentucky is obviously Tennessee broke Kentucky,
as they do most years.
Vandy, though, hats off to Vandy, because I said at the beginning of the year, Vanderbilt will win a conference game. Had no clue it was going to be this one.
No, we expected it to be against Missouri, but Missouri's improved defensively, so they've been half decent this year. Vanderbilt, it looked like they were going to get the shaft and not win one, but here it comes, nonetheless, against Kentucky.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt really offensively, I know they only scored 24 points, but they actually had a good day offensively against Kentucky's defense. And once again, the offensive line for Kentucky struggled. Will Levis was pressured multiple times. Didn't really have a lot of time to throw. And I think, if I had to say what won Vandy the game, it was probably their front seven, as they got after Will Levis quite a bit in this game.
Yeah, and really, it's not hard to beat Kentucky if you look at it, because if you just I don't want to say load the box, but if you bring an extra guy in there every once in a while, you're going to get to Will Levis, you're going to pressure him, and he's going to make a bad throw. So if you do that 3 or 4 times, happen to get 2 interceptions off of Will Levis, I mean, what are you going to do, this is one thing to look at. I saw this statistic multiple times over the weekend. Joe Milton, who threw 3 passes and had 11 yards on the ground, had more yards than Will Levis, who played the entire game.
Yes, I did see that stat. Joe Milton was 3 for 3 for like 108 yards or something.
103, and then he had 11 yards on the ground. Will Levis had negative rushing yards, 6 carries. Those count as sacks. For negative 16 yards, and then only 109 yards through the air. So he's had 2 really bad games now. I don't think they can throw this one out, as a lot of big to-dos over at ESPN were saying that the Tennessee game was not the real Will Levis. He showed it twice now. I don't think you can throw both of those out.
No, I don't think so either. And this is going to make. I think this has to make his draft stock fall. I mean, you've seen it, like you said, you've seen it twice now. Even if he is playing hurt, which I think he might be.
Even
Somewhat.
against Ole Miss, he didn't look great.
No, I mean he got. I think he got hurt in that game.
Yeah, I think that's the game he ended up getting hurt
Which
in.
I mean, if you're saying okay, well, his draft stock shouldn't fall because he was playing hurt. Well, I've heard multiple NFL GMs say before, well, we didn't draft this guy because he was hurt a lot in college, so we're worried about injuries. So it's a double standard. So I don't think you can play that the he's injured card. All right, and then I think we have one, maybe two more games left to talk about.
I believe one more.
One more, and it will be. Oh yes, I'm glad we saved this one for last. Texas A&M goes down in Jordan-Hare Stadium as Auburn gets the win 13-10. Cadillac Williams, his first win as the interim head coach at Auburn. And I was very happy to see Auburn get this win.
Yeah, never really been an Auburn hater. I've always kind of liked Auburn. That's kind of the West team that I like to follow the most.
I don't like Auburn, but I like Cadillac Williams.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, it's nice to see Jimbo Fisher struggle, especially with that $90 million buyout he's got. I wouldn't be surprised if internal investigations suddenly arise in the offseason. But it's been bad. It's really been bad all year for the Aggies. A top 10 team that isn't even going to a bowl game this year. They're 3-7. More than likely going to lose one more game, as I believe they play.
Well, they better not lose this week because they play UMass.
Yeah, they better not lose this week. But crazier things have happened. They did lose to App State. On the ground for Auburn, that's really the only offense they have is Robbie Ashford is not a good passer, 270 yards on the ground. And then
he's a good runner, though.
Yes. It's very true. Texas A&M, they were without A-Chain, and that really hurt their offense as he's their leading rusher on the year, obviously. And then they're playing the freshman Connor Wigman, who still has to develop. So it's sad to see. I think I saw this is the first time, like in NCAA history, that the number one recruiting class is not going to go to a bowl game.
Yeah, that's not a good stat for Jimbo Fisher. And if you want my opinion on Jimbo Fisher, I think he needs to. Well, I mean, he said in the post game. So I think one of the reporters asked him, is there going to be any type of change in the offense over the offseason? And he said, no. He said something like, no, I don't think what we're doing is bad. I think we're just not executing. So, if he's gonna live and die,
he has too big of an ego.
If he's gonna live and die by his offense, he is going to get fired because
he has too big of an ego to let somebody else call the play. That's his problem.
They're not going to be what A&M fans want them to be as long as that offense is the offense that he rolls out there.
No, he runs a 2015 offense. That doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. And he's never going to realize that because he's stuck in the old ways. He is quite literally the complete opposite of Nick Saban because Nick Saban, he adjusted, He changed his offense with the time, and Jimbo Fisher he's obviously not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree, Carter. And that's all that's all we're going to say about Auburn and Texas A&M.
Well, coaching search.
As far as the game goes, yes, We are going to talk a little bit about the coaching search. So, obviously, the name being floated around right now as the top candidate is Lane Kiffin. I've seen several people say that Hugh Freeze is likely not going to get this job because of SEC reasons, conference rules, dating back to when he was fired at Ole Miss.
For buying hookers.
Yeah. So he's probably not going to get the job at Auburn. And I do think Kiffin is a real possibility.
He is. But
mainly because I think he realizes that at Ole Miss he really doesn't
a ceiling.
He doesn't have the resources to win a national championship.
No, and he's never going to because, like I said, ceiling. Oxford is not, Mississippi in general is not a great state to live in, and college kids realize that. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he stays there and they go out of conference for a different head coach. I don't think they're going to go the coordinator route again because that obviously has not worked. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go the head coaching route, and that opens up the guys like James Franklin, who just got a big extension. But if Auburn's willing to pay, you never know. Who else, Tyler? Who else do you think out of conference could possibly get this job?
Well, so I was listening to Josh Pate, I think last night. I think I was listening to him, and obviously he doesn't reveal who says these things, but he was told that 2 current head coaches at big time programs are in the running for this job besides Lane Kiffin. And that made me think of James Franklin immediately because that's who Tennessee tried to hire when they hired Josh Heupel. That was Danny White's actual first choice. And then the second coach that I thought of was P.J. Fleck at Minnesota. And then I also thought of a third, which I thought was interesting.
And I actually brought this up, and you were like, I was actually
Gus
thinking the same thing.
Malzahn at UCF. Would they dare hire the coach that really put them in this mess in the first place? I don't think so, but that would be funny to see them hire Gus back.
It'd be funny to watch social media burn if they hire Gus Malzahn back. Well, he's got gray hair now, so he might be a little wiser. I don't know how that works. I'm sure he dyed his hair before he left.
I really don't think that he was
It wasn't him that ruined the program. It was the boosters and athletic director.
I mean, he really. I thought he did a decent job down there. I mean, he beat Alabama.
Consistent. He beat Alabama how many times? 3 times?
3.
Yeah.
So he really. I mean, I know he didn't win a national championship, but his first year on the job, I mean, he took him to the national title game. And he got beat by one of the greatest teams of all time in 2013, Florida State. So,
yeah, back when Jimbo Fisher was a good head coach.
So, I mean, I just think Auburn needs to hire a guy that is going to, for sure, turn this thing around. And I do believe that they're willing to fork over a lot of money. Unlike the last time, I think they are willing to give the next coach at Auburn a ton of money.
And that's because they have a new athletic director. I believe Mississippi State's athletic director moved over there.
John Cohen's the AD at Auburn now.
Yep. So they're gonna get the money to hire a head coach. It's just whether or not they'll get the right guy.
All right, let's move on and pick this week's slate of SEC games. We're going to start off with. We'll save Tennessee, South Carolina. Let's do ETSU and Mississippi State. So George Quarles is taking on Mike Leach. Battle of head coaches here. The FPI gives Mississippi State a 99.2% chance to win this game.
Yeah. This is a good place to have this game for State as they play Ole Miss next week. I'm assuming it's senior day because that's usually why they schedule these cupcake teams so their guys can go out with a win.
The Egg Bowl is in Bowl's in Oxford this year, I think.
Yep. So obviously, give me the Bulldogs. ETSU is just they're not going to get it done. Love the campus up there though. Campus is beautiful.
Well, I'm going to go with Mississippi State because
don't
obviously, they're an SEC team and they're playing ETSU, who's an FCS team.
Yeah, and they've had a down year this year. They actually won the national championship in their thing last year, didn't they?
This would be the most Mike Leach thing ever is if they struggled with ETSU and were getting beat at halftime or something.
Correct.
That would be the most Mike Leach thing ever.
Well,
to get out.
Our guys just don't have hands. Their kids aren't going to have hands.
He's throwing chairs at halftime.
Yeah,
George,
I need some coffee.
and then George Quarles is just sitting over there dialing up trick plays, hooking ladders.
Yeah.
And I do think we'll see some of those in this game.
Yes. No, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls out some of that George Quarles magic that we used to see over at Maryville.
This game's at noon. I might actually watch this game because
I will be watching this game.
Yeah, I think I will watch this game just because of Quarles.
Yep.
All right, next game we're going to briefly discuss is Austin Peay and Alabama.
Give me the upset. No, I'm kidding.
We're going to pick the spread here. What's the spread on this game? Do we have a spread?
ESPN does not have a spread.
Okay, well, what do you want to put it at? 38? I think 38 sounds good.
38 is pretty good. Give me the Tide to win, Tide to cover.
I will also go with Alabama to cover a 38-point spread. I made that up on the fly, but I'm still going to take Alabama to win. Although Austin Peay is 7-3 this year, Carter, in whatever conference they're in.
Yeah, it don't matter.
It doesn't. Next game, another really bad game. UMass and Texas A&M.
This could be pretty close.
The line on this one's 33.5, though.
I don't believe that. You know what? Give me the Minutemen plus 33.5, but Texas A&M wins this game in a close one.
This is actually one. This is actually one of my locks of the week. Not because I think UMass is going to win, but because I think this might be a 2017 Tennessee type game. If you're a UT fan, you probably remember the UMass game.
Unfortunately.
Where Tennessee only won by 4 points. And my lock this week is UMass plus 33.5. I know they're awful, but A&M's, like, have you watched A&M recently? That team is just in...
They're not 33.5 points better than anybody.
They're all sorts of dysfunctional. So I'm going to go with A&M to win the game and UMass to cover that 33.5. Next game, this is an actual SEC matchup. Florida at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's coming off their first win in conference since 2019. So Florida, obviously, they're going to have to deal with that, as I think Vanderbilt will be fired up. I think their kids are going to want to come out and win for a second week in a row. I just don't think it's going to be enough because, Florida is Florida.
Yeah.
And they do have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, particularly. So give me the Gators, although I do think this game, the line on this game is 14. I think that's about right. I think 14 points is probably a decent line here.
You know what? I'm going to give Florida to cover just because I think this Vanderbilt team, they're coming off their first conference win. They're going to be extremely hungover on it. That's just how this team's going to be. Most of these guys that are on this roster have never won a conference game. So I think they're going to come out, they're going to struggle, obviously struggle more than they already will be because they're going to be like, we just beat Kentucky. And give me the Gators to win, Gators to cover. I think the spread's going to be actually about 21. I think they're going to win by about 21.
Let's talk about this game very briefly. Missouri, who lost to Tennessee last week, takes on New Mexico State at home. What is the line on this game? Does this game have a line, or am I going to have to make one
Missouri
up?
minus 28.5. The FPI.
Okay, let's pick this game. Let's not pick this one straight up. Let's pick this one by spread. So 28.5. I'm going to take New Mexico State plus 28.5.
Yeah, I don't know if this offense can score that many points. Really against anybody, or win by that many points, I guess I should say. So give me New Mexico State plus 28.5 as well. I think that's a pretty good bet.
What's going to stink is if the final score is like 48-17.
I don't know if this team can put up 48 points.
Or 38-10.
Yeah.
Or no, 38-10 doesn't get you, but like 40-10 would. So, UAB LSU. This is a night game. This game kicks off at 9 o'clock in Death Valley. UAB is not winning this game.
Those poor Blazers. No, LSU is going to win this game.
Now, maybe if this game was at noon, I would kind of circle this game, but No, not. You're not beating LSU when it kicks off at close to like midnight.
No. Give me LSU. Give me the Tigers.
I mean, that's practically midnight down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to take LSU to win, LSU to cover, although that one's just a straight-up pick. Ole Miss and Arkansas is our next game. Ole Miss is still ranked inside the top 15. Well, playoff rankings haven't came out yet, but I'm going to assume that they're still going to be ranked in the top 15 as they're coming off a loss to Alabama. Arkansas obviously lost to LSU last week. The line on this game is only 2.5 in favor of the Rebels. Arkansas just has I just have too many questions about Arkansas right now to pick them to win this game. So give me the Ole Miss Rebels. I think they will win and cover.
Yeah, this is actually one of my locks, Tyler. I've got Ole Miss winning this game and covering. Arkansas they're like I said, they're on a downhill spiral, and this game is not going to help that spiral as Ole Miss is going to win, and they're going to win by a touchdown or two.
All right, let's go to Western Kentucky at Auburn. The line on this game is only 5.5, so it's Auburn minus 5.5 right now. Tyson Hilton, of course, is the head coach at Western Kentucky. And I'm going to be honest, if Brian Harsin was still coaching and it was not Cadillac Williams, I would 1,000% be picking Western Kentucky to win this game. But the team has kind of been re-energized, I guess you could say.
Yeah, they want to play.
And now I'm going to pick Auburn. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to pick Auburn to win this game. Like I said, re-energized with Coach Cadillac, and they're going to get their second win under him.
Last game in the SEC this week, besides Tennessee, South Carolina, is Georgia at Kentucky. And this game looked a lot more interesting a month ago, but now it's just kind of turned into another Georgia Bulldogs blowout. It seems that's going to be happening on Saturday as Georgia is favored by 22.5. That's the latest line. I'm going to take Georgia to win and Georgia to cover. I think this game might get out of hand like into the first quarter type deal. I think Georgia might be up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, give me the Dogs to win, Dogs to cover. That's not very hard.
All right. We are going to take a quick break, and we will be back with our non-SEC picks. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time to talk about last week's a couple of games from last week that were non-SEC games.
Ones that are really big for the playoff picture.
Yeah, we're going to talk about three in particular. So the first one we'll discuss is Oregon and Washington. So Washington won this game. I think the final was 37-34.
Yeah, last-second field goal by Washington, taking down Superman himself, Bo Nix, apparently. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't watch a whole lot of this game, so I'm not entirely sure how he played in general. But a good win by Washington as that takes Oregon out of the playoff hopes.
I did watch this game. He played all right. Really, the thing that cost Oregon the game was Dan Lanning, as he went for it on 4th and inches on his own 35-yard line, tie game with a minute and a half left.
Oh, so he's just dumb.
So he, instead of punting the ball, he goes for it on 4th and inches, does not get it, and it's a turnover on downs, and literally Washington only had to go like 5 yards to get into field goal range. So, and then they did and kicked it and won the game. So that was what happened there. So obviously Oregon is now out of the playoff picture as they're not going to get in at with 2 losses.
Yep.
Next game that was huge, another Pac-12 game, was Arizona and UCLA. UCLA obviously lost this game. Arizona, coming into this year, Arizona was picked to win like 2 or 3 games.
They've won 4, haven't they?
Yes, and I think they have one of the lower tier teams. Well, I think they play Arizona State the last game of the year. So I would say they'll win that game. probably finish 5-7. So.
Which is a good year for them,
yes,
considering
very
what they
good.
were expecting to do. It's a pretty good year for them. UCLA drops to 2 losses, so they're also out of playoff contention. That's 2 Pac-12 teams down. All we have left really is USC, and they still got to play Oregon.
And I'm hoping that this week UCLA beats USC in the Rose Bowl, which I could definitely see that happen. That would be the dream scenario for Tennessee fans, is to just go ahead and get USC out of the way and have them lose on Saturday.
Correct.
And then what was supposed to be the game of the day
ended up being one of the worst games to watch.
It was awful. TCU at Texas. I literally had to stop watching this game. This is how bad it was. And it wasn't just because these two defenses. It wasn't like a defensive showdown. It was literally.
It was bad offense.
It was just awful offense.
Yeah, Quentin Ewers looked atrocious. Sark made some very poor play calls. It seemed like really all either team could do was run the ball all game, and they didn't really even do that effectively.
I thought Quinn Ewers. I thought the play calling was okay. I just thought Quinn Ewers. I mean, they would.
It didn't help. It didn't help.
They would go back. Well, they would go back and show the replays, and there were guys wide open. And
yeah, it didn't help. He had a few drops. He started off the game.
Yes, they had
1 for 7.
They had a lot of drops, not just a few. They had a ton. Texas had a ton of drops.
Yeah, this game very easily could have gone the other way, but TCU for some reason just finds a way to win, even whenever their team plays bad. As they were really, and it's not like either one of these teams is like a defensive giant. Both teams actually are great on defense, and it was a defensive game. So it's hard for me to see TCU continue to do well whenever I know if Tennessee were to play them right now on a neutral field, Tennessee would blow them out of the water.
All right, we're going to move on to our pick segment for the non-SEC games. First one we're going to do is SMU versus Tulane. This is a battle of group of 5 teams, as Tulane is coming off a loss to Central Florida. Oh, and also, before we start with these, my other lock of the week was LSU minus 14.5 versus UAB. So I've got LSU minus 14.5 and UMass plus 33.5. Those are my 2 locks.
I'll go ahead and give mine too. Mine was obviously Mississippi minus 2.5 over Arkansas, and I've got TCU minus 2.5 over Baylor. Baylor's just really struggled all year, so I've got TCU winning that game.
As for this game, this SMU Tulane game, I'm going to go with Tulane, but the line's 3 points. I think that's about right. SMU is a good team. They have a really good offense, so I'm going to pick Tulane in I would say this is going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, give me Tulane as well. I believe the Green Wave is going to bounce back after that close loss to UCF. So I think Tulane's going to win this game. Not quite sure on the spread, so I don't think I'm going to pick that. I think it's about right.
Illinois at Michigan is our next game, Big Ten matchup. Illinois has dropped a couple of games here late in the season. Michigan, though, is undefeated, and they're playing at home. I'm surprised the FPI has Michigan's chances this high, as their chances on FPI are over 90%,
yeah,
for this game. Wow.
No, that's pretty crazy. I'll go ahead and pick this one. I think the Michigan-Ohio State game is going to end up being the battle of unbeatens in the Big Ten. So give me the Wolverines to win this game.
I would stay away from the spread on this one, mainly because I could see Michigan winning this game, 38-10, 38-14. I could also see them winning this game like 27-24 in a dogfight. I really don't know what's going to happen, but I do think Michigan's going to win. So I'm going to pick the Wolverines to win in the Big House. Next game, ACC matchup, Duke versus Pitt. Pitt is favored in this matchup at home, although Duke is 7-3 on the year. Duke Blue Devils having a great year in the ACC.
Yeah, a better year than a lot of people were expecting them to have. 7-3 on the year. Pitt struggled a little bit as of late, 6-4. They're just not the same without Kenny Pickett, and most people expected that, but you had some idiots that didn't. I'll go first. The spread is Pitt minus 7.5. It's in Pittsburgh, but I think Duke's going to end up winning this game. Give me the Blue Devils.
7.5 points is just too much for me. I'm not gonna 7.5 point favorite. I don't think I can take Duke. So give me Pitt. I will say Duke plus 7.5, but I'll take Pitt to win the game outright. Next game, TCU and Baylor. So Baylor is on kind of a downward spiral, and they got blown out last week by Kansas State. So Baylor's really having a rough time right now. TCU is winning, but winning close. And the line on this game is TCU minus 2.5. And a lot of people are wondering why this line is so close. And it's because Baylor does have a good team. They've got some solid players.
They just haven't been able to put it together this year.
Yeah, not consistently. Like, I could see Baylor winning this game. As crazy as that sounds. I could see them winning this game because they're just inconsistent. That's their problem.
And this, of course, the one game we wouldn't expect TCU to lose, they could very well lose. But I think the Horned Frogs are going to win this game. I don't really understand the spread being so close here.
I agree with you. I think TCU will win this game.
But it'd be funny if they ended up losing.
Yes,
to the one team they weren't expecting to lose to.
I would actually prefer if they lost.
110%.
Next game is NC State and Louisville. Louisville is coming off a loss to Clemson. This game is being played in Louisville, and the Wolfpack favored? No, Louisville is favored actually by 4 points. So Carter, we've got two, I guess you could say, above average ACC teams.
Yeah. NC State's lost their quarterback, haven't they? Leary's out.
Yes, I'm pretty sure Leary's done for the year.
They've been pretty inconsistent since then. They beat Wake Forest and Virginia Tech, but then lose to Boston College, who is atrocious. Most of the time I like to take the bounce back game here, but Louisville's had things going other than that loss to Clemson.
Well, NC State lost to Boston College last week.
Yeah, and I think this one's tough for me because both teams lost. Both teams are looking for a bounce back. Give me the Cardinals at home.
I am going to go with NC State in this one, so I'm going to I'm going to bet on the upset here. Not extremely confident in that pick, but I will say the Wolfpack. I feel like the Wolfpack have won every time I've picked them this year. I want to say that. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like I have a pretty good record picking NC State this year. Next game is Texas at Kansas. Kansas won this game last year in Austin, but obviously it's at Kansas this year. Texas is favored by 9 points, and I will start on this one. Kansas has really struggled since losing their quarterback, Daniels, and I think Texas, as bad as they played last week, I do think that they will be able to get the win here as they will beat Kansas on Saturday.
Yeah, since is it Jaden? I think it's Jalen. Since Jalen Daniels has been out for Kansas, they just really haven't been able to consistently get it going. I think I saw earlier, I was looking last Sunday, I believe this is Kansas's first season where they're going bowling since 2008, I think, which is pretty crazy considering it's 2022. But Kansas has been in a bad spot. They finally have started to see the light, but they're going to fall to 6-5 because the Longhorns are going to bounce back. Quentin Ewers is going to have a half decent game, I think, and Texas is going to win this game.
Next game is a Big Ten matchup. Big Ten West matchup specifically. Iowa versus Minnesota. And obviously, this is a big game for Minnesota, especially because if Minnesota wins this game, they still have a very good chance to go to Indianapolis and play in the Big Ten championship against the winner of Ohio State and Michigan. So this game is Minnesota's playing at home. They're favored by 3 points. The over-under on this game is 32.5 because it's probably going to be snowing at the time. So I would expect this one to be low scoring, probably 14-10, 14-13, somewhere around there. I do think it's going to be close. Give me Minnesota, and I'm going to say Minnesota wins by a field goal.
So right with the spread.
Yes.
Neither. It seems like a lot of Big Ten teams this year, other than Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, aren't very good offensively. It's been a lot of defensive battles in the Big Ten this year, which is crazy to see because the trajectory of college football is less defense, more offense. So, yeah, I'm going to give Minnesota the win at home here. Although both teams aren't great offensively, I think that Minnesota is slightly better than Iowa. And I would agree with you. I think they're going to win by about 3 here. It'll be about a field goal.
All right. Next game is Bedlam, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Normally this game is a ranked matchup, and it's one of the most exciting and looked forward to games in the Big 12. But this year, both of these teams have been disappointments, and neither team is ranked. So
yeah, and that's crazy to think considering where we were to start the season.
I'm going to go with Oklahoma just because I don't think I think they're due a win, and this game is at home. They're favored by 7.5, which I found to be surprising.
Yeah, they've dropped 2 in a row to a Baylor team that's very inconsistent, and then West Virginia 23-20. Both of those 3-point games. And it looks like Oklahoma State dropped 2 before that blowout against Kansas State, and then they lost to Kansas pretty handily too, 37-16, and then barely beat Iowa State 20-14 last week. I'm going to go with the Cowboys here. I think they're going to end up winning this game against the Sooners, and the Sooners are going to more than likely end up finishing the season 6-6.
All right, and then I would call this the biggest game on Saturday. This is USC and UCLA. This is taking place in the Rose Bowl. USC has struggled on defense the second half of the year. I think you're going to see that in this game. I worry about, if I'm a USC fan, I'm worried about UCLA's ability to run the ball because they do have Zach Charbonnet. He is a good running back. DTR also can do some damage on the ground. So I think this is a bad matchup for USC, and for that reason, I will say give me the Bruins at home.
Yeah, Chip Kelly coming off of a loss against Arizona. Pretty embarrassing loss, if to put it lightly. I'm going to say to put it lightly, as Arizona really is not a great football team. UCLA is definitely better than Arizona. They just didn't show up to play. More than likely overlooking Arizona for this USC game. So I think they're going to be pretty prepared, and they're going to come out pissed off because they lost their chance at the college football playoff. So give me the Bruins here at home. Well, not at home, the home team, the Bruins. And hopefully they'll put USC out of playoff talks.
All right, and then we just have, we actually have 2 more games to pick. One more game in the actual segment. Utah at Oregon. Oregon is going to be favored in this game. Let's see by how much. The line on this is currently sitting at -3. So Oregon coming off a loss last week to Washington. Now they have to face a very good and well-coached Utah team at home.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pick this one. I think if this game is in Utah, I think to be honest, I think the Utes win this game. They're really good at home, and like you said, very well coached. But I think this game being in Eugene is going to end up winning this game for the Ducks. So give me Oregon.
I'm going with Utah to win this game. I'm gonna say that Cam Rising has a good game, and they're going to win in Eugene. Oregon played. I think Oregon played pretty good last week, but the problem was Dan Lanning's decision making really cost them the game. I could see another scenario like that this week where he is a little too aggressive, and maybe he costs Oregon late in the game again. So give me Utah in a close one. I will say I do think it's going to be close. And then the last game is the Toilet Bowl. This week's Toilet Bowl is going to be Louisiana Tech versus Charlotte. These teams are combined for, I think they're combined for 4 wins on the year. As Charlotte is 2-9 actually, and Louisiana Tech is 3-7. So they're combined for 5 wins on the year.
Yeah, neither team with a combined record is going bowling. So that's pretty bad. The spread here is La Tech -3. The over/under 64.5, and the FPI gives Louisiana Tech a 59.2% chance to win this game. I'll go first. I tend to go the underdog in this one, and I'm going to do it here as Charlotte is going to beat Louisiana Tech at home. And it's a 3:30 kickoff on ESPN3, so pretty big game out there.
Give me the 49ers. I like Charlotte at home. I think this is going to be a must-see game, must watch.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, we are going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we will have the college football playoff rankings straight off of the printer as they are going to announce those here in a couple of minutes as we are filming this on a Tuesday night. So we'll have those when we come back, and then we'll also reveal our rankings, our top 15, and then we will discuss the Tennessee-South Carolina matchup. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our Tennessee-South Carolina preview. We are going to go ahead and do this since Michigan State and Kentucky have decided to go into double overtime over on ESPN, and the ranking show will not go to ESPN2. So we're just all off the.
We're SOL at this point.
Yes, all of the college football fans are just sitting here waiting for this basketball game to end. That, quite frankly, unless you're a fan of these two teams, you really don't care about. So Michigan State and Kentucky are ruining everything for college football fans. So we're going to talk about Tennessee, South Carolina right now, which is unusual because we usually say this for last. But we'll go ahead and discuss. Tennessee's favored by 21.5. That is the line currently. I do think the line will slightly move in Tennessee's favor over the next couple of days. The thing that I was looking last night at South Carolina statistically, and the thing that caught my eye was rush defense. They are in the triple digits in rush defense this year. They give up almost 200 rushing yards per game, and that is a good sign for Tennessee's offense.
Yeah, and that's pitiful coming from an SEC team. I think Tennessee's going to go out there, run the ball efficiently. I think we'll probably see a mix of all 3 backs again, Sampson, Small, and Wright, as Sampson really took control of the run game last week. And offensively for South Carolina, they have quite literally nothing. Spencer Rattler is. I've said it all year. Spencer Rattler is not a good quarterback. He is the same quarterback he was at Oklahoma, but he's worse. He's not worse, but he's got a worse team around him. So he's not good. He's been overhyped all year long, and it's annoying to watch whenever you've got a guy like Hendon Hooker who is overlooked all the time.
You mean underlooked?
Underlooked, yeah.
I expect Jalen Hyatt to have a big game on Saturday night.
Yes.
I forgot to mention this game is a night game. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. Tennessee, this is their first road game since the Georgia game. And
it's the first night game they'll be playing on the road.
Yes, it's actually the first night game all year they've played on the road.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting, and that's actually I'll go ahead and do the keys to the game. My keys to the game for Tennessee. Number 1, handle the environment well. So
better than Georgia is pretty much what we're saying.
As we mentioned, Tennessee, this is their first not away game of the year, and South Carolina can be a difficult place to play. Okay.
Yeah, Williams-Brice legitimately is a loud place. It doesn't matter how bad the team is performing. They're always rocking over there in South Carolina.
Even though I've seen several South Carolina fans just hoping on Twitter this week that the game is within 4 touchdowns, I still think they will show up and make noise for at least the first half.
Yeah. Well, unless we see a scenario like LSU where we have a turnover with it on the first drive of the game, and Tennessee goes down and scores, and then a 3-and-out, and then Tennessee goes down and scores again. At that point, it's 14-0. Your offense is not known for coming back in games. It's over at that point, pretty much, because then Spencer Rattler has to pass the ball, and that's the last thing this offense wants, as they are predominantly run heavy.
My number 2 key for Tennessee is pound the rock. Okay. And the reason for this is because of South Carolina's run defense. They gave up, I think, 270 yards last week to Florida.
It was over 300.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay. They gave up a ton. The point is that they gave up a ton of rushing yards last week to Florida. And obviously Tennessee's offense is explosive, and everyone thinks of the passing game when they think of Tennessee, but what people don't realize is Tennessee runs the ball very effectively.
Yeah, and I believe most of the time we have more carries than we do passes. It's just, our pass plays have been so explosive this year that it's really taken away from the run game. At least people looking at the run game, because they think Hendon Hooker, Heisman caliber quarterback, they're going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to run the ball with him a lot. Our running backs get a lot of carries, and it's really split between Wright and Small, but like I said, we could see all three this weekend.
My number 3 key is don't lose special teams. You don't have to win special teams. You just can't flat out just get killed in special teams, because South Carolina does have a good special teams unit.
Yeah, with Shane Beamer, they're going to pull some sort of fake.
They will probably either, in this game, I'm calling it right now, they will either try an onside kick, try a fake field goal, try a fake punt.
Or all three. They really could. They could try all three.
Block a punt or have a return for either a touchdown or a big play. That will happen in this game, I feel like. Because that's Beamer ball.
Yeah, Beamer ball, baby.
Is
that's all you
special
hear.
Teams.
Yep.
And then my number 4 key is don't let up. And Josh Heupel did not do this last week, as he hung 66 points on the Missouri Tigers.
Yeah, if we have a scenario like last year where it's 35-7 at halftime,
38-7, I believe.
38-7, something like that. This game is going to end up being in the 70s. I have no doubt in my mind, at least in the 60s, because Josh Heupel is not going to let Shane Beamer get those moral victories out of this game. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. South Carolina started off the season 6-2. I mean, they were ranked inside the top 25 after their win against Kentucky. Should they have been ranked inside the top 25? That is a very valid argument. I would say no, but nonetheless, they started off 6-2. They've dropped 2 in a row. It's going to end up being 4 in a row because they play us and then they play They play Clemson, and they're not beating Clemson. Clemson is too stout defensively, even with their offensive struggles. So they're going to end up falling to 6-6, going to the Duke's Mayo Bowl again, and be Mayo Bowl champions.
One thing I do want to look at here is South Carolina. So South Carolina stats, we're going to pull those up. Receiving, I was looking last night, and receiving, I expected Josh Vann to have a lot more production, but he just has 14 catches this year for 162 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and part of that is quarterback play because they got a guy that they expected to, produce for them, and it's not been the case as he has, I think, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on the year, so still in the negative.
It's not good.
No, bad ratio.
Their 2 leading receivers are actually Antoine Wells Jr. and Jalen Brooks. Wells has 4 touchdowns on the year, and Brooks, their second leading receiver, has no touchdowns on the year. And then Austin Stogner, their tight end, he is actually a transfer from Oklahoma. He came from Oklahoma with Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, because I remember them saying in the offseason that was going to be a very big hookup this year.
He has a total of 18 catches on the year, and 1 touchdown. So it's really not been much for South Carolina through the air this year.
Rushing, they've got a team total of 1,272. That's on 320 attempts.
Well, I think, is Marshawn Lloyd their back still?
Yes, 100 attempts for 556 yards. That's a 5.6 average, so he's effective on the ground.
Yes.
They're really effective on the ground in general whenever he's running the ball. However, after that, it's not very good. 53 attempts for 195 yards.
That's McDowell. That's their backup.
And then their third leading rusher is their tight end, 47 for 150. So that's not good.
I'm assuming he is a power back too.
It got to be. I'm assuming some sort of Princeton fan ordeal over there. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. Oh no, excuse me, 2 rushing touchdowns on the year, and then Christian Bill Smith, I guess, is their third string running back. 34 attempts for 146 yards. That's a 4.3 average, so not terrible. With 5 touchdowns. So they've got rushing touchdowns in the 20s, which is pretty good, but offensively they're not good in general.
All right, we're going to go ahead and make this prediction time. So I will go first. I have notably been pretty wrong on these score predictions all year long, and it's mostly been in the opponent's favor. Like, I've not picked Tennessee to really blow out many teams.
I have, on the other hand.
Yes.
I've been pretty accurate on most of my picks.
I'm actually, so I think the key to this game, as I mentioned, in my keys to the game, ironically, is Tennessee's ability to run the ball. If Tennessee is able to line up at South Carolina and run the ball with no issues, this is how the game will go. I'm going to say Tennessee wins 59-14 over South Carolina, 45-point victory. And the only thing that will be interesting about this game is what time Cocky, the mascot for the Gamecocks, that chicken, what time he leaves the stadium.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do mine now. Obviously, Tennessee is going to win this game. I don't see a scenario. I saw a few people on social media saying that this was going to be a trap game. I don't see it. There's no way that this is a trap game. I got Tennessee winning pretty big. I think they're going to easily cover the spread. Give me 63-17. I think Tennessee's going to win 63-17. I don't think South Carolina is going to score as many points as Missouri, and I think we're going to put about 9 touchdowns on the board.
So if you put our two scores together, the spread should be minus 45.5. Of course,
which it should be.
Yeah,
but
and now that we say that, Tennessee's probably going to lose.
I would cry. We would never podcast again.
But yes, that's going to do it for our Tennessee South Carolina preview. We are going to try and get these playoff rankings. Hopefully, they're finally out, as it is now almost 10 o'clock, and Hopefully this basketball game's not still going on. It looks like Michigan State just won. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with the playoff rankings. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time for our final segment tonight. This is the ranking segment. So we will read off the college football playoff rankings that were just released, and then we will give our own top 15 rankings. Obviously, Georgia is number 1. Ohio State at 2. Michigan 3. TCU 4. Tennessee is in the 5 spot right now, so they're on the outside looking in. LSU 6, USC 7, Alabama 8, Clemson 9th, and Utah rounds out the top 10. Penn State at 11, Oregon 12, North Carolina 13, Ole Miss 14, Kansas State 15, UCLA 16, Washington 17, Notre Dame 18, Florida State 19, and UCF 20. And then the bottom row is going to be Tulane at 21, Oklahoma State at 22, Oregon State 23, NC State 24, and Cincinnati rounds out the top 25. So, Carter, you can go ahead and read off your rankings if you want to, your top 15.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read mine off. So my 1 through 4 are the same as they were last week. Or actually, excuse me, I ended up moving TCU into the 4th spot just because, they're 10-0, even though I think Tennessee would beat them in a head-to-head on a neutral side by 20 points. Not 20, but by multi-scores, I believe. But I've got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. I was going to put Michigan at 4, but I kept them at 3. TCU 4, and Tennessee 5. I actually have it the exact same top 7 as the playoff committee, as I've got LSU at 6 and USC at 7. I've got Alabama at 8 and Clemson at 9. I think that's the exact same way it was. So I guess I'm on par with what the committee's thinking. I've got Oregon at 10, Utah at 11, so I've got them right outside of the top 10. Penn State at 12. Ole Miss at 13, I have them dropping 2 spots. Washington at 14 after their big win against Oregon, and UCLA at 15. So pretty Pac-12 heavy top 15 from me.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me. I have a lot of Pac-12 teams in the top 15. Obviously, I have Georgia at 1. I have Michigan 2 and Ohio State 3. So that's the top 3 I had from last week. I kept them the same. I did flip 4 and 5, though. I think last week I had TCU at 4. This week, I have Tennessee at 4 and TCU at 5, mainly because, in my opinion, TCU did not win because of great defense. They won because Texas played horrible offense, and that was a very ugly game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That game was it was bad, Tyler.
And I do think Tennessee would win by 2 scores on a neutral field against TCU. I have LSU at 6. I have Alabama at 7. Over USC, who I have 8th, and then Clemson 9. Penn State is 10th in my poll. Then I have Ole Miss at 11, Oregon at 12, Utah 13, Washington at 14. The reason I have Washington below Oregon is because, yes, Washington just beat them head-to-head. However, I can't ignore that Washington lost to Arizona State, who's terrible this year. So that's why I have them ranked 2 spots below Oregon.
Yeah, and that's a thing that we really saw. We've seen consistently this year is bad Pac-12 teams beating some of the better Pac-12 teams.
Yes, and then I have Florida State rounding out my top 15. So that's, I guess that's going to do it tonight, as we are going to finish with the ranking segment.
Yeah, kind of odd, but Michigan State just couldn't beat Kentucky in enough time.
Thank you, Tom Izzo and John Calipari. I want to thank everyone for listening to this podcast.
Please sponsor us.
Yes, please do. That would help us out a lot.
Oh yeah, especially since we're going to try and get an apartment on campus next semester.
Yes. All right. Hope you tune in next time. We'll see you next week.